everyone. I'm Rebecca Weber. This is your Amac podcast, Better for America. And if you haven't yet done so, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you never miss a BFA episode. Now, today, I am honored to have with us a voice highly respected in virtually all circles, a thoughtful patriot, analyst, Fox host, and a constant inspiration. She is a six-time Emmy Award-winning anchor, a no-nonsense interviewer who incidentally has interviewed Amac's national spokesperson, Robert Charles, on more than one occasion for 3/4 of Amac's 2.4 million members who have a veteran in the family. It's worth noting that she is active in her support of the Green Beret Foundation, and she wrote a book on growing up in the military family. She also actively supports breast cancer awareness and is always giving back. Notably, she moderated a March 2020 town hall with President Trump that broke all records, recording 4.4 million viewers. She is today the co-host of two Fox shows, The Faulkner Focus and Outnumbered, formerly hosted Outnumbered Overtime with Harris Faulkner. And of course, I should have issued a spoiler alert because she is Harris Faulkner. I cannot tell you how wonderful it is to have you on this podcast and how happy the AMAC membership nationwide will be to hear from you. Harris, welcome.
Thank you so very much. That warm lead up. My goodness. First of all, I want to thank all of your members for being Fox viewers and for watching the Faulkner Focus and Outnumbered. I feel very blessed that they tune in. And to you, I just have to say, you are a superstar. And it is an honor to share my voice with yours on the airwaves. So thank you for having me.
Harris, thank you so much. You are on top of so many issues. You're ahead of some, and I know that you have deep family connections and a real commitment to America's veterans. So I do want to turn, if I may, to that topic. Since, again, it seems that the administration was really, until Russia's invasion of Ukraine, really soft pedaling the importance of strong defense, our national security, and really staying strong. So I'm wondering if first you could tell us just a tiny bit about your family service and upbringing, about what you have written, and then perhaps you could offer us, really from where you sit, your thoughts on what happened with the very chaotic Afghanistan pullout and how important both defense and America's veterans are to all of us.
I will get to all of it. In fact, just recently on the program, Admiral Kirby, who's the spokesperson for the Pentagon, was on, and we had a rather heated back and forth about the exit from Afghanistan. So I'll start there and then I'll kind of get into my upbringing just because it made some news and continues to. You know, part of what I hope to do is not to make people uncomfortable necessarily, but sometimes the truth is. And when we exited Afghanistan, the nation got to see something that maybe we don't always see. And that is the hearings with generals saying that they had told the president that there was maybe a different way to do it and that he didn't listen. And that much, truth telling from that high up the food chain and the constellation of voices and experts around the president really frustrated the facts. And I put that in quotes from what was coming out. And look, it's not easy to admit when you've made a big mistake, and especially one that causes loss of life. There were 13 military members who died at the Kabul gates of the Kabul airport, hit by terrorists as we were trying to help, over 100,000 people, including some of our own, get out of harm's way. And it was an ineffective, ill-planned mission. I don't believe that the generals were doing anything other than just telling the public what they saw and what they experienced with the president. But it's cost the administration a big chunk of credibility. And honestly, you don't get that back easily. And you ask me what the importance of a defense is. Well, who wants to be in the world if you're not secure? How can you remain a sovereign nation if you don't have a military? And your military, by the way, can't just do one or two things well. We do need to be excellent in fighting cyber attacks. And we do need to be excellent on different fronts, right down to keeping our border sovereign. And these are not issues that are necessarily political. So as a journalist, I'm always looking for ways for the administration to say, aha, we have an idea, we're going to move forward. For any administration to do that. But right now, especially because we're in a crisis over the way that we are handling, particularly the border. which segues into Afghanistan and other military issues. Why? Because the world is watching how we deal with things. And the world awaits to see, are they porous? Can we infiltrate? Drug cartels wonder that. Other countries wonder that. The fentanyl's coming from China. China wonders, well, how much of this stuff can we push into that country? How crippled can we make them in terms of dealing with the heartbreaking losses that they're suffering with drug addiction right now? You don't think they see that? Of course they do. They manipulate it. So these are all things that we're covering. And when I get the opportunity to talk with someone like Admiral Kirby, I am going to ask these questions. And it sometimes can get a little bit heated, but I'm hoping that when people watch me do that, they understand, like you on your program, somebody has to ask. I don't always have faith that some of the press corps will push in, and I don't have that DC access all the time. I do go down periodically. So that's kind of how I was raised. And my dad was a colonel, combat pilot, 2 tours in Vietnam. The most important part of his life that he wanted his kids to understand was his legacy, was his service. And, you know, in and out of the uniform, it's what the Bible teaches us. Serve your fellow man and woman. Be on purpose with God's grace. So there's a lot of all of that in me because of growing up military. So when I talk to an admiral, I'm not anticipating that person not answering my questions. Like I'm not easily intimidated. I mean, I grew up with a guy whose shoes were always shiny.
Right.
The colonel. His expectations were high. So I appreciate the question, and I don't want to talk too much because I want to hear from you too, but I hope that filled in a little bit of just why I am like I am as a journalist, particularly on issues of homeland security and sovereignty for our nation. I grew up understanding what can happen if you don't have them and watching a father fight wars far away.
Thank you for sharing that. It is so important. So many of our members are military serving, as I mentioned, or have a family member who's serving or has served. And so AMAC is so deeply committed to America's veterans, and our membership is deep with veteran families. So we appreciate your experience and your perspective. It's so important. Harris, I do want to pivot a little bit. There's so much we could talk about. I want to talk about something that matters so much to America's families, including our AMAC members, and especially grandparents and parents of young children, the stunning shortage of baby formula in the nation. And our members are thinking, what the heck caused this? How Americans should be reacting to this development. It's hard for me to believe that in the United States of America that we're facing a shortage of nutrition for newborns, but we are, and we're seeing the Biden administration apparently either shifting blame, and they're certainly shipping formula, it seems, to other countries. As of May 13th, 2022, I believe it was 26 states in the U.S. stated that over half of their retail stores are out of baby formula. Those are states like Texas and Missouri and others. And it was Kat Kamek who tweeted a picture of the Ursula Processing Center down at the border with completely stocked shelves. But it seems that the Biden's FDA is keeping one of their major production facilities closed based on concerns that were raised in February. But here we are, it's May. We have what I'm reading is 40% of major baby formula brands are out of stock. That's up since about 31% in April. So once the FDA gives this other manufacturer a green light to restart production, that still means that American families are likely to be out of formula until July, or looking at shelves that are running low or longer. So, yeah, doesn't this amount to really an unacknowledgement of a crisis? And should the Biden's FDA be fast tracking a restart of formula production? And what does this tell you about the priority of women and children's health in the Biden administration?
Well, I'm going to start with what we can be doing, because I appreciate what I'm seeing in some of the social media for our show, the Faulkner Focus, and some of mine. It is this question about, okay, we all get the outrage and everything, but we're out here and our babies need formula. So does anybody have a solution? And I have to tell you, Rebecca, I understand that. Like, you and your members at AMAC can get all upset about it, but don't we just want an answer? So when I suggested that President Biden go to Abbott, there are only 3 companies that make 90% of the formula for America. Well, why is that? He should go to the front door of Abbott and explain to them why his administration isn't getting the ball going, and then pivot and tell us, right? I mean, I'm sure they're wondering too. Yeah, I mean, even if they got online tomorrow, and even if they utilized all of the Donna, Texas facilities formula that we know about, because Congresswoman Kat Amac that you mentioned, Republican Congresswoman, told us that they were there. Even if we did all of that, she told me on the program this week, it wouldn't be enough. Like, that's how far behind we are now. And I got to tell you, on the show, it was really surprising for her to say these words, and I want to get them right. I said to her, well, wait a minute. Why can't FEMA release some of its stockpile? First of all, they have some, because when there's storms, tornadoes, hurricanes, everything is out for days, all that electricity. The formula goes bad if it's already constituted. You can't reconstitute or use it after it's room temperature for too long. And then everything gets wet. Those cans have metal, but they're also cardboard. So everything gets ruined. So what does FEMA do? Well, you know what they do. They tap the stockpile. You don't think this is an emergency? So here's what she told me. Well, I didn't even know this. My team and I were surprised. She said, I'm the ranking member of the FEMA subcommittee on Homeland Security. For the last year, I've been going after FEMA and the administration, asking why they spent over $130 million out of the food and emergency temporary housing budget to fly and bus illegals around the United States. Instead of using those funds for Americans, they've been paying for plane tickets and bus tickets, and they've spent, again, $130 million through NGOs. They don't want to give us the information. They want more money so they can continue this process. When Title 42 goes away, which it's set to go away in a couple of weeks, everything is going to be bankrupt. So I was shocked to find out that they spent the very money that would help with emergency food funding on a place that ironically has baby formula along the border. I mean, you almost can't make that up. It is what I would term, honestly, as a huge blind spot for the administration. And sometimes when you are not sensitive to a crisis as it's unfolding, you make mistakes and don't even realize how much worse you're making the situation. Now, is that letting the administration off the hook? No. They're underwater on everything statistically with the American people right now. But this is different, because when a baby comes into the world and they've got a certain protein deficiency and they need a certain formula, hospitals send with you bottles of formula home until they can figure out, will your child reach an age where you can breastfeed? What do they do? And there are all sorts of health situations that can lead to this, but that's one in particular that I know about personally. Well, yeah. What are we doing if we don't have enough formula for everybody?
Yeah, definitely a blind spot. You're right when you call it a blind spot, because this is what's going to make people, I think, make decisions when they go to vote.
Absolutely.
And it's the way people, you think that these are some very basic necessities here in America. It seems that there would be some solutions, but they're avoiding the conversation altogether.
They're not using them. They're not using them.
They're not using them.
And so what Congresswoman Amac said today really shook all the apples off the trees. And you're right. I mean, blind spot doesn't seem strong enough. So let me go here with more of the facts that she dropped. So she went to the Donna facility because people accused her of those pictures not being authentic. From the left.
Of course.
So she went there over the weekend. And when she came back, she had more of a story, because, sometimes when you go to see something, you begin to ask and people begin to give you more information because you showed up, which is why people want the president to go to the border. But now there's a second reason for him to go, because the second crisis has unfolded having to do with what's happening on our southern border, the baby formula shortage. Now, again, there may not be enough down there to supply everybody, but maybe that would create a window for the transportation secretary, Pete Buttigieg, to do something. So here's how I get deeper about blind spot. And you're right, it's not enough. He's a new parent. He and his husband have 2 new babies. breastfeeding not an option there. Where are they getting their formula? Now, is that too tough of a question? I don't know. I ask it. I want to know.
That's really good, Harris. That's a great question.
Want to know.
A fair question. Yeah.
You get there by, for me, collecting all these facts and saying, they're looking at the same thing that we're all looking at. How is it that we can go deeper than they can? And they're supposed to do one thing, and that's keep us safe. We're not safe if our children aren't eating. That's a weakness.
It really is.
And I don't get it. And so you mentioned women. I just threw back, it's parents. It's if you have a baby to feed, it's parents. So why can't the new parent in the administration who's tasked with supply chain issues help be part of the solution? I don't know. We're calling him. We'll see if, what Buttigieg wants to do.
Yeah, and we applaud you for having Kat on your show. She's done a lot. She's a doer. She's someone who gets it done, and we need to see more of that. We need to see some of that, my goodness, from Biden. I do want to shift sideways a little bit and ask you about law enforcement, because you have seen how law enforcement in this country has been diminished and really disrespected since 2020 and moving forward. And this honestly sits so poorly with AMAC members in much of America. And I watched one of your recent shows and you shared those unsettling statistics. So as we're watching crime rise, especially homicides, drug trafficking, and other crimes, the impact on police morale, the retention, recruiting, suicides have been, this is so devastating. So I do want to ask, do you think, in your opinion, that we could be coming out of this? Is law enforcement going to get the respect that they greatly deserve? And how can Democrats continue to advance the idea that law enforcement should be defunded when so many Americans, our members, want to be safe, secure, and we want to be in safe communities?
Yes.
Do you see a shift?
I don't know how they can look at this issue and not see that defund is not only demoralizing for communities of officers, and by that I mean officers who are serving all over America, but the places where they live, they become such important beacons of light where they are, keeping us safe. I don't understand how anybody coming from the idea that your first job is to protect your constituents wouldn't want to support them. Each case is different. I say this all the time. And as a person of color, navigating this issue since 2020 has been really interesting for me. And I've leaned into that because I think that, I don't speak for all people who look like me. I can tell you that each case deserves adjudication and a close look, and you can't broad brush paint any group of people. So why they do it to police officers, I will never understand. But what I do know is we can't replace necessarily quickly what we've lost. When you defund $1 billion from the New York Police Department, and then you have crime off the charts, and not all of it is gun crime. I know that the left likes to talk about that. There was a woman in our subway system, 57-year-old teacher, who was hit in the back of the head dozens of times by an attacker, and it's all on camera. This is recent. So you can get caught up in the politics of gun control. You can get stuck there, I guess, if you're on the left. But when you're an American citizen just trying to go to work every day and live the dream, it's impossible to get stuck in one zone. You need answer solutions, and we need cops. Like, I don't want to live in a world where there's no order. Who wants to live in a world where there's no law and order? And then to politicize that is particularly troubling and dangerous because they're caught now. They've been suffering from, you mentioned suicides. I'm concerned about the ambushes, about the targeting of our cops. 19% of our police force are former military. When they come home from fighting in war zones, they have a place where they can continue to serve. These people are not getting into jobs to be cops just to check the box of a paycheck. I mean, if you're a police officer in America, whether you're ex-military or it's been your dream since you were a kid, you're dedicated. And we aren't grateful for that dedication by making sure that they're secure. I think that's foolish. But more importantly, it's un-American, because this is a place where other people break into the country to get here for the law and order that we live with. and provide. They're breaking in to get in. Yet we're tearing down the facilities and the infrastructure and the human beings that keep us safe. We can't continue to do that. Now, there are Democrats who get it. Henry Cuellar, blue dog, more conservative Democrat, lives in Texas. Oh, he gets it.
Yeah.
You know, there are a few because they're confronted with the issues. It'll be interesting to see how far left the party of Democrats will go. Not the individuals, but the party. Joe Manchin's not going there.
Yeah.
Kirsten
Harris, I've been
Sinema's
saying for a long time they have a rule or ruin attitude. If they can't rule their way, and if we don't go along with it, they want to ruin what's left for the rest of us. And so we're keeping such a close eye here at AMAC how these things unfold. Have some great stories on our website and in our magazine. But you yourself are such a force in the media today, and your network is such a wonderful force. And I know that our members are so grateful. You are thoughtful, you are clear in what you say and what you believe, patriotic. But we live in such odd, strange times. We see Biden's Justice Department investigating parents as terrorists for speaking at local school board meetings. And now this one has got me really wondering what's going on. We've got a disinformation czar, censorship at the Homeland Security. I'd like to share your tweet on the screen in response to Nina Jankowicz, who's director of Biden's Disinformation Governance Board, suggesting that verified Twitter users should be able to edit other people's tweets. And you said, okay, hard no. And I think that is a hard no from all of us here at AMAC as well, because it seems like these are all really added efforts to undermine the Supreme Court and really fail to grant basic rights like free speech to American citizens. Does this remind you a little bit of George Orwell's 1984? And are you at all worried that the traditions that keep us safe is somehow breaking down? Are you worried that our civil fabric is being torn?
I am concerned that it is not something that they prioritize. And I'm confused about why. You say Orwellian. I think it's worse than that. I think it's dangerous. I think that when you take away people's ability to transparently speak who they are and what they believe, you make the population feel like, and maybe this is how it is, but it certainly is the perception, that they're not important. Yet you turn and you say you need people's votes. Well, which is it? Do you need people's votes? Do you really want to hear what they think? I mean, I'm really confused by it. And in America, and the reason I said a hard no to that was, in America, when there is actual disinformation, we don't need a czar because we can see it. So I don't know the purpose of the governance board. I've read that it's not punitive. I'm not even less bothered by knowing that it's not punitive because, well, then why are they watching us?
Very good point.
I'm like, okay, so you're not going to punish me for what I think, but you are going to cancel me, which feels a lot like punishment, by the way. But the disinformation that I think that we need to really be aware of today, on this day, and you tie this to a lot of different things. Let's just hit it plain and simple. We're in trouble in this country because we have a tax now on everybody through inflation. And the fact that the disinformation governance czar isn't interested in putting out real facts and numbers about the one thing that hits every single American in this country, the high price of everything, tells me that they don't see us and they don't care. And that to me is worse than anything, because it can lead to a situation that looks a lot like communism. It can lead to voices unheard and certain voices unchallenged, meaning theirs. So to Nina Jankowicz, look, if you're really interested in finding disinformation, I have plenty that I can point you to. But you don't have to go through people's social media to find it. It's anywhere that you want to see it. I've got receipts.
Including in Biden's tweets, he himself and the White House, what they put out. We've seen them make error, mistake after mistake. It really is, what's next. I think the American people are wising up. Harris, I know that you've been so generous with your time. I have one last very quick question for you. I want to thank you again because you are a clear voice for common sense. I want to ask you one last question, one that probably applies to so many Americans because we see people flooding to AMAC in the thousands each week because they feel ostracized, they feel singled out, they feel attacked, they feel silenced. I'm curious, since you are such a public person, as an American, you are a woman, you're brilliant, you have an African American family heritage, you're a diehard patriot, a daughter of a veteran, a Christian, and such a bold voice for conservatism. Do you face added criticism from the left? Are you a target for those who really want to intimidate, criticize, and really, disincentivize those of us who have conservative values by conviction? And if so, how do you handle that? A little word of optimism for those members who are listening today.
All right, some optimism. First of all, I'm attacked by everybody because I get into it with the truth in mind. I will say, though, that probably the most I was attacked was after President Biden, then candidate, said that if you don't vote for me, you're not really Black. And I responded quite strongly and fiercely and quickly that, just because we share skin color and hair texture, we're not all the same. And if you can't appreciate our individual differences, why do you think you deserve one's vote? And I put that on Twitter and I talked about it on the couch and Outnumbered. I mean, I really strongly feel that we have got to get out of this place in this country where our anticipation and expectations for people are based on what we think we understand about them because of the way that they look, whether they're female or male. The left likes to say it really understands women. Well, why don't you sit down and talk with women who are pro-life right now? You had the bully pulpit under Barack Obama. You had both sides of the House and the Senate and the White House. Yet your team of Democrats did not codify Roe versus Wade. Now, why is that? Is it possibly that not all women are the same, even the ones that vote Democrat? Because you couldn't get it done because you didn't have the support that you thought you did. Why not listen to everybody? Because the answers are fabulous from wherever they come from, but particularly from people who as a whole feel like they're being heard. That's why having a czar of disinformation or someone, that's why Elon Musk's potential buy of Twitter made such big news, because he wasn't interested in canceling voices based on what people assumed about those on the right. Let's hear from everybody. But you know what that takes? You know this well because you do it. It's courage to listen to people who challenge your view. And I don't know if they lack courage, but in my world, I don't. I was brought up in a military household and courage was in our DNA. And as a parent, you really need courage if you have teenagers. Like I do now. I've got a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old, two girls that are outsmarting me at every turn. That's what we need. So the positive message is, I see conservatives walking out courage so often. They are, when you look at them, more likely statistically to join the military, more likely to jump into a situation like a baby shortage, a baby formula shortage, and shake the rafters. I see that specifically conservative women.
Yes.
Right? So, when I interview people on my show, I keep in mind, and I have a power panel with a Democrat on, an independent. I shake it up. I want every voice. I want to see people in a sphere where no one is afraid to hear good ideas and to be challenged. Otherwise, what you get is everybody canceling everybody. And this wokeness, you know what that is? It's a lack of backbone for actually debating. That's what that is. Just cancel the other side. Don't give them an opportunity. But the good news is we don't give up. As Americans in general, we don't. And for AMAC members, how many did you say you had? 2.5 million?
2.4 million.
Amen to that for you. That's wonderful.
Yes.
And for America, that there are voices out there who are discussing these issues, continue to be heard. And here's a little tidbit. If you want to share some disinformation today, 18 U.S. Code 1503 says that no one has the right to go on the personal property of any judge in America, especially U.S. Supreme Court justices, for the purposes of anything other than bringing a baked good. That's not actually in the law, but it should be.
Yeah.
So there cannot be intimidation. There cannot be protests on their property, right?
Sure.
I talk about that all the time. I talk about those issues. And I think that conservatives do that on social media so much that it is why you've seen the cancellation and the suspension. Have you noticed that your numbers have gone up since Elon Musk has taught everybody how to use the little star on Twitter?
On Twitter, sure.
To stop the algorithm from blocking conservative points of view. That was a bit of news, I thought. And there are Democrats out there who benefit from this big discussion, particularly among women, because they don't have baby formula right now either. You know, we're in this together.
We certainly are, and I pray that 2022, this will be a year of restored hope and fidelity to the Constitution, because we really we respect our history and our values and the ideas that are in our Bill of Rights, and our freedoms of speech and worship and other rights. So I am so hopeful that Americans are seeing more and more. We've got to bring people together and unite this country. And you, Harris, are just a wonderful source of strength and a beacon of light, truly. And this has been just such an honor. I thank you for your time today. It's been just a pleasure to have you with us. And I know that you're a favorite with our 2.4 million members. So thank you for all you do.
Oh, I feel very blessed to be with you today. Thank you so very much for having me on and letting me be the chatty Cathy that I can tend to be. You were so patient.
Oh, please.
I feel passionate about these things, and I'm grateful to come on and talk with your listeners and your members. And tune in 11 a.m. Eastern every day, the Faulkner Focus. We do get into it. I have since run into Admiral Kirby. He said I make him uncomfortable, but that's okay.
That's exactly what you want to keep doing. Get the answers, ask the questions. And again, your bit of courage, it makes so many others brave. So thank you. And to all of you listening today, thank you for tuning in. If you haven't downloaded that Amac News app, go ahead and do that, because you can watch this show. You can track breaking news right there, right on your smartphone. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button, like, follow, and share wherever you are on social media. Until next time, I'm Rebecca Weber. This is your podcast, Better for America. Thank you for being here. God bless you. Have a great day, everyone.
You're listening to the Better for America podcast, presented by Amac, the Association of Mature American Citizens. To learn more about Amac and all it has to offer, visit us at www.amac.us.